And I think in our generation, to be honest, I've hardly had an issue where a manager complains that they are being bombarded with an employee who's always giving them catch-ups. It's always the contrary. They're always having to follow up. How far with this? And that's why you see things, organizations like Monday.com, they are growing.
Yeah, they are.
Because that's the biggest challenge.
That's the reason.
Yes, the performance, because they don't know what people are doing. You see, I think it will be important for someone to watch all the previous episodes that we have done. I feel like you can't just come from nowhere. That's one of the things that I'm saying.
And what I'm about to say.
Hello everybody, hope you guys are doing great. Welcome to the first episode of Uncut with Tate. And here I'm with my beautiful wife, Pals. Welcome to Uncut.
Hey, thank you.
Man, she's a dragon slayer in the corporate space. And man, I'm so glad that she joined us today. And I also have the crew in the background. Shout out to you guys in the studio. What is Uncut about? It's really a space that we really want to help a lot of young people who are in corporate, who are working, and for them to do well. Because I think it's on the heart of every young person to have the skin in the game, to have that corner office in the Archlands of Saturn or somewhere in the fancy areas. So it's one of those things as a labor lawyer who has had a decade of experience and in consulting. I consult every day.
Still a decade or more at this point.
It's been a minute. It's been years where we get to see a lot of young people, and a lot of young people are facing issues in that space. And Uncut will be that story that can help one navigate, to do well and be able to just know that, there is a role that you can play and you can be successful while doing it. And one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was the biggest challenge that I've seen, the issue that I'm really, really consulting on a daily basis.
I'm always hearing these stories. Is
the issue of a lot of people who are not meeting expectations, and they end up being frustrated. They feel like they can do the job, but what's on the job description and what the manager is saying they should do, they are not complying. And the frustration comes with a lot of professionals is to say, what I was hired for and what I'm expected to do, it's not telling. And I don't know exactly what is it to focus on. And because many a times people end up saying, or employers end up saying, you're not a performer. So people end up frustrated to say, when I got the job, when you sent an interview, you said I was gonna do these, roles and these credentials, but now I'm in now, and now I'm being given stuff that I didn't even study for, or things that I was not, anticipated that I'm gonna be dealing with, and the scope becomes a lot.
Things I didn't sign up for.
Things that you didn't sign up for, and the work is now a lot over and above your KPIs. So, and now you will find that there's so much confusion. And now when you start a job, they are only giving you the first few weeks to orient yourself. And for you to do well. And these are new things. They are telling you programs that you know nothing about. And they were not reviewed in the interview process. They were asking you stuff that you know. I mean, it's very rare to find people who will go for an interview for things that they know they cannot do. It's very rare. But you will find that when people start now, I don't know the issue with corporates, when people start, there are new things that just pop up from nowhere. Now they want you to study, Python, but on the
everyone needs to know Python.
Of course you would say that.
At least we know the snake. The snake.
It's like Excel. Everyone.
The snake in the Amazon.
Like Excel.
I at this point.
So, so then, Tate, can I ask? So, in your dealings,
Yeah.
is it mostly from the employer side or the employee side?
I think it's always. I think because I get to consult with a lot of employees. I think their biggest frustration is the fact that that's not what I signed up for. You are bringing new things that, and you want me to be, a guru, a specialist on the things that I did not sign up for, and these are and it's extra. Things that you are expecting me to do, and that's where the frustration comes. And many a times, the ironic part is they are judging you on those things. What about the things that I said I can do? The things that I know that with my eyes closed I can be able to deal with these things. And many a times I've noticed with the way corporate has been set up. Back then in our parents' days, you would find that you'd be a manager and you'd have an assistant manager. You'd then have a junior person. But now they are literally compressing.
They're combining roles, like a role that's supposed to be done by like 2 different specialists will be like put into one, and you're even wondering like, how can one person be a specialist in both these areas? But that's how it is now.
And the thing is, even when they advertise the role, they don't really put everything.
Put it out there.
It's like
I get what you're saying.
It's like in their mind, they say they're gonna do this, but it's not there on paper. Because I think when someone is to have some form of expectation of what is needed, it gives them an opportunity to say, I can be able to apply for this.
But now I'm in that situation. How do I navigate? Because I'm there now. I'm signed on. And that's what I'm facing. It's either I'm gonna jump off this ship, or I find a way to make it work. And I think that's the advice that we need as young people. Like, how do I navigate that space when I find myself there? I'm sure most of us have found us. I know I have found myself in that space. And it's very frustrating. And the frustration is not that you don't want to, like you're a difficult person. The frustration is that I want to perform well. Like I actually want to do well. That's the frustration. And I want to do well in what I know I can do well. Right. So now when you're in that situation, it's frustrating. How do you navigate that? How do you,
And I think in addition to that, Paul's like, how do I manage that and still meet the uncommunicated expectations? Because that's at times what the issue is. Like what you just said, your boss expects you to meet a certain expectation. At times it's not exactly what you're seeing on the ground. How do I still meet that expectation?
You will see that on your employment contract, they will say that from time to time, you're expected to adhere to other things that are beyond, the scope, And I think they should really say, I think they should just tell people the truth that daily, all the time, all the time. And I think maybe I'm not sure. I think we will need to invite one of these corporate guys who do the job specs, human capital and something, because maybe sometimes they don't want to scare people from applying. And I think to answer your question, I think really when you find yourself in that space, and I think before you find yourself in that space, I would really want to say to the ones who are looking for jobs and people who are applying, I think it's important for you to know that whatever they put on the CV and in terms of their requirements, just know that they're going to add more. I think that's how the world is really changing. Just know.
You mean on the job spec?
On the job spec, whatever their expectations, just know that there's going to be more, and there are going to be certain skills that are required beyond the ones that you're expected to do. Like, I mean, you.
Now that you're talking about it, I'm actually putting myself, when you said we need to bring these people that do job specs. I'm just kind of taking myself back and remembering when in cases where I was recruiting and how the job spec was created. I think you actually don't really know, even as the hiring manager, exactly what this person is going to fully need to do. You're putting to the best of your knowledge. What's going to happen there. The team's expectation as a whole keeps changing. So our expectation of you is also going to keep changing. So I think it's not like in a bad way. It's just how corporate works, forever changing.
Because
forever
strategies are
evolving.
changing. Strategies are always changing. New managers come in and they go in a different, window of direction. Now everyone has to comply to that. Yeah.
So then, what do I do now? I find myself in the situation where I'm seeing my job spec and I'm seeing my actual role, and I see that I spend more than 50% of my time doing these things that are not accounted for. Is it good practice for me to go back? Let's say Pals is the one who hired me. Is it good practice for me to go back to say, actually, can we revise this? Because now I have my leg in the game a little bit. Or is it seen as, how does it land to the other party? If I'm now coming to say, can we add this and this and this and actually remove this because it doesn't form a majority of what I do, so that I can feel measured on something that I actually do.
Yeah.
Do you have a relationship with pals? I think you have to, so that those are the challenges that people have, because people now feel like when you go to them, and I think that's the issue. We have people who incorporate, people are too much in their fields. A lot of, employers, managers, they are too much in their fields. Anything that an employee tries to, in good faith, push back, or just to raise something, it's taken somehow. So I think the most important thing before you go to your line manager, you need to have a good relationship with your line manager. Your line manager needs to know that you mean well, and you really want to work. You are not just being difficult. So I think that's one of the, before you do that, try by all means to check how best you can convey that without people taking offense, because many a times in our society people are offense ready. So you have to really first develop a good relationship, and you must have proper, justifiable reasons in terms of why you feel that should be taken away. Because, contractually, there are things that, by operational requirements, you are required at some point also to just extend the ambits of your scope. But I think one thing I think can help is if you develop a good relationship with your line manager, and also show that you have gone the extra mile. Don't come with this thing. That's not what I signed up for. That's not my job description. I'm not going to do this. But I mean, if you go and you've shown in certain spaces that, I did, when I came here, I didn't know Excel. But I went, and I learned, I did, Udemy. And Udemy is one of those things that really recommend people to acquaint themselves. And I think as young people, guys, we know that, technology is moving. The skills that, of typewriting are not needed anymore, Now even, the things are evolving. It's AI. So you really need to know that in the space in the corporate world is moving, it's ever changing, and it gives you predetermine your heart when you know that this thing is going to be changing and I'm expected to change and have new set of skills. You'll be able to deal with the frustration because that's what is happening now, and I think that really making that good relationship, and also to be able to show that, hey guys, I'm thinking that this is a bit we won't be able. So I think it's always the way you present it. So I would rather have, I always advise my clients in the consultations, is the way you present it, and timing as well. Is the boss under pressure? They're going through a lot. That's not the best time to go and throw your toys, because they are already getting pressure from the exco, from the top. So rather, when there's a way you make those suggestions, not in a, in subordinate way, and you're saying, you know what, we've got this target, and I'm so excited. It's always the way you the way we put it across. We call it the sandwich approach, You start with the compliment, you put in your complaint, and then you end up with the compliment. At least you'll be able to do with it properly. At least to say, I'm so excited about this role, and man, it's been, and being honest, it's to say I'm excited about it, and it's got many challenges that it has, and I've noticed some of them, but I want us to achieve our goal. Our main goal is to make sure that we hit the target. But I feel that there are going to be certain challenges that I'm going to face, in achieving these goals. For example, and then you motivate. For example, I've learned, I know, I'm required to learn extra. I've managed to do Excel. I've managed to do a little bit of Python, a little bit of,
Please don't get
R, SQL, all these type of things that you have, presentation I've done. But there are things like, that require at least a high level, maybe I think this we might require an IT person who will be able to help us. So it's always the way you present it, I think, that helps.
And I even with the conversations, I don't feel like they have to happen immediately when you realize that you're given work that's beyond what you signed up for. What you signed up for. Yeah. It's sometimes give it time and do the extra that's expected of you. And keep your records, like, just your portfolio of evidence, as some would call it, but just your records, what you've done, the work you've done that you were employed for, and the extra work that you've done, right? Firstly, it gives the impression that you're just someone who's a team player, who, is willing to go, like, not from like the onset, you're just like, no, I can't do this. This is not part of my job description. I think go with the flow for a bit, and then the next time you have your review or your sit, you can actually take out those things to show that, okay, this is the work that I've been working on, right? My KPIs only measure me on half of this work, yet my time is actually split between this work and this extra work. And I don't mind doing this extra work, but could it be maybe included in my KPIs? I know for me, usually I always suggest that in my KPIs, I have a percentage of things that are ad hoc. So we'd call that an ad hoc line. And I won't just keep it
added to your KPI as an ad hoc. Not specified. Oh, that's a good one.
That's a good one. That ad hoc line will not just sit there as ad hoc. I'll have an agreement with the line manager that every project I work on or every element that I work on that's an ad hoc, I'll actually put it under that ad hoc section. So we might not have it predefined on the onset, but as I go along, we know definitely there's going to be ad hoc. So I'll put that as ad hoc, but then every time there's something I do that's ad hoc, I'll put it under there. So when it's time for our next performance review, it will be clear every ad hoc thing that I've done. So it's not like I just put that ad hoc line that's not clear what exactly I was doing, because that's what people don't like when you just say, ad hoc project. What was that?
Exactly
so those are the things you have your predefined projects and you have ad hoc, because everything will have ad hoc. And then you have an agreement that as I go through my ad hoc work, it will be put in there. And when we review, that will also be considered, because it is time spent and, effort put in.
Gone in.
I think I like the portfolio of evidence. I think it's important to always, because many a times employers are thinking, what do you spend? What am I paying?
What are you doing?
What are you doing?
Because you think you're not doing anything.
And that time you're sleeping at midnight.
Many a times it's still a new space, and you're trying to do so much research. You're trying, and many a times people don't take that into consideration. So that portfolio of evidence, when they ask you, what is it that you'll be doing? You'll be in a position to say, listen, I've been doing this. I'm actually, working overtime. Because I think that's very key. I think it will really, really help you. So that at least even when you talk about bonuses and everything, people can see that you're a team player. You're not just sitting around. You're not just there to get a check, but you're actually there to add value. Because that's the main thing with managers. So that because the biggest challenge that I've also seen with our young people, we don't always communicate with our line in terms of what are we doing. Your manager should not be looking for you.
There's always an assumption.
Oh, wow.
They have to assume that.
Yes, and they shouldn't be the one calling for those catch-up meetings. You're the one who has to be calling up for the catch-up. Because you need the promotion.
You need the bonus.
You need the bonus. So you should be the one setting up the catch-up meetings with your manager to say, listen, I'm on this. They should, wherever they are, whether they're on a holiday in Maldives, they need to know what you're up to.
What you're up to.
But the problem we have now is we have a lot of managers who are micromanagers because they don't know what you're doing, because you don't want them to know what you're doing, what you're spending your time. Because for all they know, they think you're at the mall. You're busy. That's why this issue of working from home is an issue. Yes.
But if I was keeping you up to date.
If I'm keeping you up to date, on top of mind, you know that this person is working on this. Because at any point in time, when they also go in those exco meetings, they don't want to act weird. They end up lying on your behalf. Oh no, we are working on this project. They already know that you're not working on those projects. When they come out of those meetings, they are now putting pressure. Guys, we need to have these deliverables by this. Your manager needs to know, this project that you have given me, I'm on 50% completion. I'm on 60% completion. You manage. You see, we have ability to manage our managers.
So you manage up.
You manage up.
Okay,
So those things are critical in terms of the way you do with things. But the problem is you want to hoard stuff and you want to keep yourself in your naughty corner. Your manager is not going to have confidence.
You are being naughty in that time.
Because you're not working.
You're not working. You're going to do it all in the last minute. So I can't keep you up to date every day.
This last minute gang,
Yes.
you know, the last minute assignment gang, you know. They struggle a lot.
I feel dragged.
I'm judged as well.
I actually have a follow-up on that one, right? So let's talk about those employees who may not have a compatibility in terms of way of work with their line managers, right? So let's say, I mean, people are different, managers are different.
Yeah.
Some people feel, yes, I want to know exactly what you're doing at every moment in time. Other managers feel that is annoying. You are annoying me with your constant requests for catch-ups, with your constant updates. Just do what you need to do and deliver. And as long as I see the production, I know you're working. So can we touch a bit on that as well in terms of compatibility of where work? Let's say I am an employee, I am calling for catch-ups, I am following up, and now I've gotten to a point where I feel like, hey, I might actually be bothering or annoying my bosses, so I decide to take a step back. That is a real reason. It's a real justification that many people, have for not approaching their line managers. So how does one in that particular situation manage themselves as an employee?
I don't know. I don't think catch-up is, hey, can we meet for an hour and talk? Catch-up can be at the end of the day, a quick email. Oh, this is where, this is what's happening, this is where I am. Right now, I'm still doing okay. Don't need you to intervene in anything. Like something quick, depending on how you guys talk. But it shows progress. So it's not like, okay, a formal thing. Okay, 16th September 2024. So it's just
so it could be an email.
Yeah,
but basically it's almost like a performance tracker or a work tracker. Say this is where the work is.
Yeah.
So depending on how your manager is, if she's a talker, then you would do those 5-minute talks with her. If she's an email person, okay. But I really like that, particularly because of what Tate mentioned, where he said it even grows the manager's trust and confidence in you. They feel like, this child always has their things in order. They know exactly where their things are. I don't have to worry about it. Unlike those ones where you find out on the last minute. We had people like that in my previous work. Someone would only mention at the very last second that they can't do something. Meanwhile, this was needed. We're going to Exco next week. And only then are we finding out that actually this thing was never done because person A in ops didn't do this and didn't do that. So I like that point. I'm going to take it for myself.
And sometimes it's not, to be fair, sometimes it's not like those people where you find out at the last minute, it's not even like they haven't been pulling their weight. Sometimes as a person you want to be independent and prove that I can pull this off without this and that. And solve my own problems. But it then comes back to bite you because at the end it looks like, what were you doing all this time? Like, why were you quiet?
Why didn't you ask?
And in your mind you're like, oh my gosh, I was really trying to pull this off. So it's also for your own good, but at least if you say, okay, every time you're giving an update, okay, this is the issue now, I've hit this roadblock, this is what I'm trying to do to work around it, and then they can say if they can move the block faster for you, if they can, so I think it just, I'm talking from the perspective of someone who wants to handle everything on their own and come with the finished, polished product. So I'm like that, and I can tell you it's not comfortable for managers. because they do want to be involved, because guess what, when the person goes to Exco, wherever they need to go to report, it's not gonna, the excuse of saying, oh, Palesa was working on it is not gonna cut it. It was your project. It's, you get me. So they have every right to be involved. They have every right to know what's happening. So I do get that.
And I think in our generation, to be honest, I've hardly had an issue where a manager complains that they are being bombarded with an employee who's always giving them catch-ups. It's always the contrary. They're always having to follow up. How far with this? And I like what you've said, where you say that have a tracker. And also, if you see that they are not that type of, chitty-chatty, just have a platform where you just say, you're updating, we are giving updates in terms of where things are. And you can always say, hey, just in case you want to follow up, there is a link. This is where I am. This is what I'm doing.
That's nice.
So that at least wherever they are, they can always check on top. Even when they're in meetings. I mean, like, for example, they're in Exco, they want to find out something. Where is something? They can literally go and they can quickly check.
Have your things online.
You have your things, your portfolio of evidence and tracking. And that's why you see organizations like Monday.com, they are growing.
Yeah, they are.
Because that's the biggest challenge.
That's the reason.
Yes, the performance, because they don't know what people are doing. So that's why it's key that...
And people prefer that to... looking like they are micromanaging you.
Yes,
so having to see what's happening without them having to ask you. So
then that brings me to a question, guys. My previous job, so we were managing a category. It was the smallest category out of them all. And we were given a target to hit a 2 million savings in that fiscal. 2 million, and by April we all saw that this thing's not going to happen. We are not going to hit 2. I mean, there were many reasons why we weren't going to hit that 2 million, but I remember thinking at that time, I wish I could speak up about this in a way that shows that we are really doing what we can, the best that we can, but we're not going to meet this target. Before we even get to the end of October, and now it's year-end review, and now I'm coming for the first time saying, we're actually not going to meet this target. So how do I navigate a situation where there's an expectation here? I know probably bonuses are measured on these things. I am not going to meet this thing.